عليكم رقيبا. Brothers and sisters, we come here seeking the safety and security of divine guidance, that our souls will live a life of gratitude, that we may come to exalt and glorify the flawlessness and beauty of our Creator, Provider, and Sustainer, that we may realize His mercy through following the example of His final messenger, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And the verse that we recited is the verse at the beginning of Surah An-Nisa. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to often recite it before he would make a sermon. And it tells everybody, "O humanity, should all be mindful of your Lord who created you all from one male and one female, that those two will be the source of all of humanity, and that you should be mindful of Him because it is through Him that you pray, and it is through your close relationships in your family that you seek His bounty." And so this is the human family. There is a broad human family, and then there is a specific responsibility to your direct family. So on that note, I wanted to give some reflections upon a movie my wife and I saw last week. We went to go see a movie called Origin. It's a true story depiction of a Pulitzer Prize winning author named Isabella Wilkerson. She wrote her recent masterpiece called Caste: The Origins of Our Discontent. In this book, she has a thesis that the United States and many other places across human history have been controlled by a divisive class system designed to preserve power and accumulate wealth for the dominant group in that class system, known as caste, especially well known in India. So here in the United States, from the beginning, the notion that white people who are Christian were inherently better than and superior and more civilized than those native brown people. And then in the process, when they wanted to build on their land and they wanted to make wealth, they found that these Africans, they could use the exact same methodology by saying these people with dark skin, they're not on the level of us, so they must be slaves. That's their purpose. And so they created that model, and it was an interesting model because they didn't really have that model within Europe. They had a different kind of economic class system. So when Irish people who were seen as weak and lowly in Europe and England, when they came here, they realized they could become white. And that empowered them to feel something about themselves. So the Quran tells us in dealing directly with this issue, that He says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْعَالِمِينَ. God, you will know Him through looking at the creation of the heavens and the earth. And you will see His many signs in creation. He said, among all of those signs, you will see the beauty of His truth in the differences in your languages and skin colors. Truly in this are signs for those who reflect. This is Surah Ar-Rum, chapter 30, verse 22. So in the Quran long ago, this idea of one color or one culture or one language being better than the other on virtue of that alone was destroyed. Those are all equally the signs of God. In this movie, Isabella, she told her cousin about the founders of racism. And what she suspects was at the bottom of most American white people's thought process. She says, it was always lies. They knew we weren't inferior. They just want to have power. They want to be able to control. They want to make easy money. And so to just believe that these people are like animals who are uncivilized and not qualified on their level because of their skin color made them feel better. But why would you allow such people to raise your own children if you really believed that? So she made a beautiful point. And so the Quran talks about this in the term of how Pharaoh dealt with people. إن فرعون علا في الأرض وجعل أهلها شيعا يستضعف طائفة منهم. Very clearly and vividly in Surah verse number 20, chapter 28, verse number 4, God says, certainly Pharaoh, became a tyrant. And he made the people under him into various factions. And he made the lowest among them to be his slaves. He said, the Israelites, they are the weakest and the lowest among us. They should be the slaves of our society. And he created other classes under him. This is a model that they have. And so when you look at India's Brahmanism, okay, they invented a similar model. There were certain people that had wealth and power, and they wanted to maintain it, so they invented beliefs that there are classes that people, so for example, some people are really good at business and trade, some people are fighting in the military. Then they said, well, these people here, these are the lowly people, these are the Dalits. They need to be our servants. They need to do all of the dirty work, right? Like clean up the feces and urine and all of that stuff. And they're called the untouchables. So they invented this system in order to control people so that their power and their wealth is maintained. This methodology is attested to actually in many places in the Quran. The Queen of Sheba, when she was talking about the nature of rule and the corruption therein, she says in Surah An-Naml, verse number 34, she says, قَالَتْ إِنَّ الْمُلُوكَ إِذَا دَخَلُوا قَرْيَةً أَفْسَدُوهَا وَجَعَلَ أَعِزَّةَ أَهْلِهَا أَذِلَّةً وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ. شوف الآية. So the Queen of Sheba says, here in the 27th chapter and the 34th verse of the Quran, the Queen of Sheba says, certainly if a king comes to rule a town, they corrupt it by subordinating the dignified among them and making them into the weak group. Right? And so this is their way. That's how the rulers rule. And this idea of creating these classes and putting one in a position. So the Nazis, that was their situation. So the Nazis, when they came to power, they saw that a lot of Jewish folks have a lot of wealth and a lot of influence in their society. So they said, what are we going to do with this? How are we going to maintain power? We need to make all of those seem like the lowest class, and that they're a danger to all of us, and that we are the upper class, and that we are the true Europeans. Now see, Jewish people look just like other Germans. They were both white, you see? So they created this, okay, the Jews are the problem, and we need to get rid of them. And so this is a model. Interestingly enough, on Isabella's trip to Germany while she was researching for her book, she went to go study Nazism in Germany. She went to go visit a Jewish woman who in their conversation ironically told her, when she told her her thesis, that it's not just about race, it's not just about racism. There is a system that powerful people use. And she said, what I see here is that Nazis used a very similar, almost exactly in principle system. So that Jewish woman kind of got bothered. And she told Isabella, she said, you're trying to make sense of racism. I appreciate that. But your thesis is flawed. What we went through as Jews and this extermination versus what the black people went through, it's different. And so she doesn't even realize that she's creating a caste system for oppressed peoples. Like, we are more oppressed than you. You're the lower oppressed group here, right? She didn't realize she was doing that, but that's an inclination people have. And of course, she wasn't happy with this, and she went and called her cousin, and her cousin said, unfortunately, this is the way people think. So Allah deals with this. Allah tells us in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَى وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. And chapter 49, verse number 12, God says, O humanity, I have created you all from male and female. You are all from one source. You're all one family, one race, human beings. And then from that race, I made different shu'ub, large nation states, wa qaba'il, tribes of people, so that you will come to know each other, that you will learn from each other. Not that you will make one superior to the other, or because if you stay, people tend to have enmity or they're suspect of people and things they don't know about. If you don't know someone, if you don't know their background, if you don't know their experiences, you can easily interpret something wrong with them according to your limited scope, your own bias. So Allah is saying, no, you should get to know people with different backgrounds. You should realize there's something you have to learn from other people who come from a different background than you, rather than going in, oh, I know my way, and this is who are they? They're on a lower level than me. And that's how the devil whispers to us. The Quran tells us, هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Are those who know like those who don't know? Only the people of spiritual intellect will understand and take heed. Those who know morality, those who know God, those who know each other. Are those who know like those who don't know? No, those are very different. And so he's talking about a value we gain. So they came up with a label, a kind of description, casteism. Casteism is granting or withholding respect, status, honor, attention, privileges, resources, benefit of the doubt, human kindness to someone on the basis of their perceived rank in the hierarchy of the caste system. And if we think deeply about this, we'll see that there's many ways to look at this. Obviously, we see that in order to try to establish power and their own security, that those people who migrated from Europe and they want to establish a Jewish state. So what do they need to do? They need to make these Palestinian people that they are not on our level. They are uncivilized. They're a problem. They're a danger. They're a threat. We have to move them out, get rid of them. They did the same thing. Here in America, we see that there is this notion of the Western Christian, and you're the Muslim foreigner, right? So you find yourself at a natural disadvantage because people have this dominant idea that because they are born here and they are Western and modern and that they are Christian, then you as someone who's not from here and that you are not a Christian, especially post 9/11, and that you're this dangerous Muslim, right? Now you see that there's a caste system that was developed there. Even we're seeing it with the liberal and scriptural. I don't like to use the term conservative because the one who's truly reading scripture and truly studying prophethood will progress and grow, and they will adjust and change according to the divine guidance that is given to them as they mature and understand better and learn new things. So this idea that religion means you need to keep everything the exact same way it always was forever doesn't make any sense in a properly educated Muslim's mind, right? So now you see where groups were saying, oh, we accept you Muslims, you're among us, the liberal groups. And they're saying, you're being oppressed. This is not right. They said all of you are violent after 9/11. And the Republicans are saying, we don't want you here and we want to, ban you from the United States. You're one of us. But then the second we, on our values that we hold, that we believe in, disagree with some of their core political features, we get outcast. We become Dalits. We become the lower. We're not worthy now. We're not afforded respect, status, honor, attention, privileges, resources. You see, it's a casteism. And they're saying they're liberal, but really, no, that's just a word they're using. This is the new conservative of the modern era, right? You have to think these ways, right? And these are the right ways, and no one can challenge them, right? You see? And so there's more than one. And of course, on a global scale, we're seeing since the end of World War II, this development of the wealthy elite. Davos and the G20 and all of that. You have the wealthy elite and the people with all the money and the billionaires, and the multimillionaires, and those who own big corporations that have political power. And then there's the commoner who's not allowed at this meeting. And that their opinion, no matter how educated, no matter what they've done in the world that is good, that is not wealth and power, they're not allowed in that power structure. So there's so many ways to look at this. We ask Allah to enlighten us and move us in the direction of His pleasure. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Islam challenges and corrects this fundamental human corruption, this caste system, this desire to monopolize wealth and power and to make others as unworthy in order to have your own power and wealth, and to create these systems of hierarchy based upon arbitrary desire and power and wealth rather than actual value. So the Quran tells us in the 17th chapter, verse number 70, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Truly we, and the royal we, God is talking, have honored each and every human being. We, God is talking, has honored all of humanity. Each human being is a dignified creation of God. That's a teaching that we have. The Prophet, peace be upon him, when he was in his farewell pilgrimage, and he would end up dying few months after he gave this profound speech to what they said 100,000 people. All of these believers came to the pilgrimage now. Arabia has been liberated from all of this corrupt tribalism and idol worship. And so now he says, humanity, you are all from one Father who was made from the dirt, meaning humble yourselves, all of you. No matter how wealthy you are, no matter how much knowledge of religion you have, no matter what political role you play. That there is no superiority for an Arab over a non-Arab, or a non-Arab over an Arab, or a black over a white, or a white over a black, except by piety. And we know in the Quran who knows who is pious and who is not. إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيمًا خَبِيرًا. God is the one who knows who is pious. That's his judgment. So then he says, have I not delivered this message to you? And they said, yes. He said, then every one of you who is here, go tell everyone else that is not here what I just told you. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was sent with the final revelation to fundamentally extinguish the basis and foundation of human corruption as it comes to governance and power and economy. It's very profound. It's not just that Islam's against racism. It's much deeper than that. The Quran says, فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اتَّقَى. Surah An-Najm, chapter 53, verse 32. Don't claim for yourselves righteousness or honor. That's God's business to judge. So Isabella Wilkerson challenges us to be better in her book. She says, you don't escape trauma by ignoring it. You escape trauma by confronting it. So this idea that, yeah, they have all these things they say stuff about Muslims and, what they're saying and what the curriculum says at school, how people treat my kids, Islamophobia, what's happening in Palestine and elsewhere around the world of corruption and evil and our government's complicit. Oh, I'm just going to try to hide from it. It's just going to haunt you. It's going to eat away at you. You need to confront it. You need to address it. So she traveled to India and she met a Dalit scholar and professor. And he told her how, as Dalits being seen as the low caste in India, who are called untouchables, who are constantly living in a very extreme form of Jim Crow racism, as the Palestinians have been living under for a long time in the apartheid state of Israel. And he said, we empathize and we study the other oppressed peoples. And in this movie and in this book, he says, we feel the pain and understand the story of the Palestinian people. So you have to build relationships with other people. And then you know them and understand them, and then you work together. And all of these delegitimized, dehumanized, low caste designated people will then become the majority. The Quran says, تعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. You have to cooperate on righteousness and cooperate on those things that uplift God's truth, and do not cooperate with people in sin and hostility. A lot of people don't really see the profound nature of the ayah in verse number 194, 193 of Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran. فَلَا عُدْوَانَ إِلَّا عَلَى الظَّالِمِينَ. There should never be hostility from anyone towards anyone else unless someone is being hostile against an oppressor. There's no hostility except against oppressors. Why? Because these are people who are using their God-given blessings and power and wealth to subjugate and delegitimize and designate and subordinate people as lower castes and giving their life no value because they have the ability to do it. So the modern casteism in America is about believing in the political and economic system, which is by nature corrupt and oppressive. You see, you'll talk to people right now and you'll say, you know what, I'm going to vote for this person or that person. They say, no, you have to vote Democrat or Republican. And who decided that? Do you know what would happen if somebody came up and got on all the ballots as a different candidate, which there are candidates who have, and everybody just decided, no, we want to vote for this person. That person would become the president of the United States. But the system is designed not to go outside of these two. It's two sides of one coin. They are both operating. If you look where there are some things that they're always bipartisan, right? And those things are related to oppressing people economically and militarily. And the militarily is for the economic interest. You see? And so we need not continue to buy into this ideology, right? If you ask people about all of these billions of dollars and these billionaires and all of this and how much money we send to the military, and then you say, so why don't we just allot how many billions so that we can have single-payer health care and everybody has equal health care coverage and it's just natural, it's part of living here, like many countries have. They don't know we can't do that. Why can't we allow, like many countries have, who are much poorer than the United States, why don't we allow just free college education? Why do we have to enslave people to debt, a compounding interest debt, so that they can be educated when we have more money than the whole world? We have the largest economy in the world. No, you can't do that. We're not able to do that here. And you know who's saying that? Both Democrat and Republican. Otherwise, they would have got it done when they were the majority, right? And so this is where you see. So Robert Reich has a very beautiful quote in Saving Capitalism. I know it sounds weird, but this is his documentary he made. He's got a lot of good points in it. So Robert Reich says, the notion that you're being paid what you're worth is so deeply ingrained in the public consciousness that many people who earn very little and are drowning in debt think it's their own fault. But if you analyze how much profits are being made for many corporations, and how many people who, if those people all decided to unionize, which is why historically they try to stop unionizing, and they said, no, we're not going to come to work and do the thing that you need us to do so that you can make those billions of dollars until you pay us a living wage. Well, then they would not be able to have their business. You see? But that's not how the caste system works. It's those people who came up with the idea and have the political interest to lobby Congress to get themselves outside of the framework of accountability and just fair dealing with the people who work for them. We can do nothing, right? But we're believing that. If we chose not to believe that, we can change this country. It has happened times before when everybody was saying this will never change. Okay, there are many things in this country's history which everybody for a long time said that's how it is, that's how it's going to be. Some good, but many of them actually immoral, right? But it changed because people got together and decided that that's not how we're going to do it. One time a Republican coal miner in this same documentary, Saving Capitalism, he was talking about how he likes Trump and all of this, and he was saying, I didn't get an education, and so I'm just a coal miner, so I understand, I can't just dictate what everybody does. And he doesn't realize that if he and all the other coal miners stop mining the coal, how are those people going to make all that money from coal? How are we going to get electricity? He's been brainwashed to believe he's the lower caste. He should accept the lung cancer he's going to get for the career he chose. He should accept the pay that he's getting and the debt that he's in because he is the lowly uneducated. If you think that Donald Trump is any more educated or any more of value than that guy, you have lost your mind. He was just born into a wealthy family. Guy is dumber than a doorknob. I've heard, I've listened, I've read. It's ridiculous. Go look at the educational background. Go look at the actual, George Bush averaged C's all the way through. His dad was a big, wealthy family of oil, and they were brought in through Ronald Reagan, and then he's going in off the tails of him, and he didn't know what to do. That's why he found Dick Cheney. He was like, you know all this stuff and all this Republican, you come do it, and I'll just sit on the side and I'll give the speeches and stuff. And he was like, great, Darth Vader, And so, but he believes in that caste, and we believe in that caste, and everybody's going along with it. If we choose to respond in a different way, we'll be in great shape. So in this inherent superiority concept, that many people are believing themselves inferior. I'm going to say, and please, it's all love. We're just trying to deal with things real. Many people in this room believe themselves inferior and unworthy of many things that they should not be thinking in that way at all. They chose to accept that thought process about themselves. And there's something called Stockholm Syndrome. It goes back to how they say why, in many cases throughout history, somebody who's a captive of war, they start to feel a relationship with their captor. But it gets deeper than that. It's like wanting to be like the great caste, trying to be white. Some folks who come from African background with very dark skin, their kids told me, I don't understand why my parents are saying we're white. I'm telling you, it's called Stockholm Syndrome. You're trying to live up. A lot of people with brown skin are being racist against black people because they think that makes them like the colonizers who taught them that. This is deep psychology. It's ingrained. They have put this in your mind. It's evil. It goes against all these ayahs and many more that I have commented on. But if you're not a conscious, إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ, if you're not a heedful, mindful, spiritual, intellectual person, instead of a hamster wheel fulfilling, bill paying, low caste individual who's accepted that status for yourself, nothing will change, and you will not get anything that you hope for yourself or your children, because they'll fit into the caste. They'll want to become like the Western liberal and all of that, as we're seeing. So it takes a sense of dignity. So you seek God's favor. You believe in yourself. You know that you're a servant of God. You look for the best in others, and you stand up for the underprivileged. So in the Quran, he says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ. Do you know what this steep hill of spiritual empowerment is? He said, فَكُّ رَقَبَةً. Free the slaves, starting with yourself. Slavery is not just owning a person to work out on a plantation. It's a big concept. To believe I must be a certain way and live and think in a certain way, otherwise the upper castes, I will be condemned. I will lose any status that I may have gained. The Prophet ﷺ was destroying that. That's where all the torture and abuse and humiliation, he was challenging this system from day one. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he was just a man reciting words. And in 23 years, the entire peninsula of people are following his message. You gotta know, it's not hard to believe. It's a historical fact. You can do it. But him and his companions were ready and willing to free themselves and free others from the chains of this caste system. You have to educate yourself, educate others, and most importantly, be willing to be educated. So the Quran tells us, talk to people. وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُ الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Tell my servants, speak with people with good things, learn the truth, speak in a good manner. إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَنْزَغَ بَيْنَهُمْ إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ كَانَ لِلْإِنسَانِ عَدُوًّا مُبِينًا. Satan wants to cause conflict and hatred amongst you. He is your true enemy. He is the source of this. Like what he started off with the caste system. أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. From the beginning of his arrogant, envious evil, he decided, I'm better than Adam, not because of any real thing that I know, but because I'm from fire and he's from the earth. I came before, he came after, so I must be better and I should be the one that the angels are bowing to. So let me create a model system by which I can then destroy these people. Ya Allah, we ask you to protect us and save us from the evil of our own selves. We ask you to purify our hearts from ignorance and arrogance and foolishness. Ya Allah, we ask you to empower us with the beauty of the love of your revelation and the light of the message that you revealed to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. We ask you to make us a people with the audacity and courage to change, a change that will change the world around us to be a better place where all people feel the comfort and the compassion and the rahmah that you represent. We ask you to make us a people who are driven by purpose and meaning, that death is something we look forward to, knowing that every day we live in a way that shines your light and brings the beauty of your countenance and magnanimous nature to the world. We ask you to forgive us for our sins, forgive our family, and forgive all of those who have testified to your oneness. We ask you to make us among those who are worthy of your contentment. Make us worthy of the intercession of your beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Wa aqimus